The one sneaker I could draw from memory, even till today, and that's actually the next piece I'm doing in my series, is the Reebok question.
What's up, everybody? Welcome to another episode of the Sneaker History Podcast. I'm Robbie, and I'm chilling here with my friend Chris B. Murray, artist extraordinaire. How you doing, man? Thanks for coming on the show.
I'm doing all right, man. Thanks for having me.
My pleasure. So happy you're here. I like to have people who are going to maybe shed light on other aspects of the sneaker world. People get caught up on being LeBron or designing a shoe. There's lots of other things you can do. You don't have to be an influencer. There's many type of roles and jobs and careers in the sneaker space. What's so beautiful about Chris here is he not only has great sneaker artwork, but a lot of music artwork, a lot of stuff that we would probably roll into the thing we call the culture, right? Stuff that makes a lot of the stuff we love cool. So Chris, go ahead and tell us a little bit about yourself, maybe where you're from and where the love of sneakers came from.
Sure. So originally, I'm from upstate New York, small college town right on the St. Lawrence River. Grew up playing basketball. You know, I don't know if it was like most kids in the 90s. I'm an 80s baby, but love 90s culture, everything about the 90s. Grew up loving basketball, loving hip-hop music, comic books, you know, all those, the trifecta, I guess you could say. And then, went to college for art, studied illustration, fine art, and then moved to Philly. And I've been in Philly since 2008, I believe. So what is that, 12, 15 years? My math is terrible. But, it's just, I've been doing art full time for the last 10 or so years. That's my passion.
What was your day job before you took the plunge into doing it for yourself full time?
Oh man, I had so many. I think the one I worked for an art shop, a framing shop. I was an ice cream delivery guy for a day. A lot of wild shit, man. Just so many jobs that are forgettable. But it's funny. I look back on those jobs, and I guess I took a piece from each one of those. Regardless on how terrible that job was, I usually took something from each one of those, occupations or positions or whatever you want to call it. But
that's great. I mean, shitty jobs suck, but what's great is that you can be an example of getting caught in the weeds and maybe getting bogged down by it and still working those jobs, or taking something from the jobs you don't like, keep it moving, and then maybe eventually with perseverance, you're working for yourself for the next 10 years.
Yeah, that's the thing. I mean, at every crappy job that I've ever had, it was like I was always drawing in my head. If there was no paper available, I was always planning on the next piece I could do when I got home or back to the studio or whatever. And, several times I got yelled at by my boss for drawing, doodling, jotting down ideas for the next piece or whatever. So the plan was always, to work for myself. It just, I get it. Like some people, either I guess you're a risk taker or you don't take that risk. So that's why a lot of people stay in that dead end job or whatever you call it. And not to knock those people, but I just always had a plan to just kind of do my own thing. So that was always in my mind. Yeah.
So doodling sneakers, are these like sneakers you like grails you don't have at the time or stuff you're rocking on foot?
Yeah. I don't know, man. I guess I've been drawing sneakers.
So what's the first sneaker you drew that like, what's the one that got you like, oh, I'm going to do this shit. Like I'm going to learn.
Sneaker I could draw from memory even till today. And that's actually the next piece I'm doing in my series is the Reebok question. There is something about that silhouette that just, and not even the silhouette, it's just the detail. And because I've seen the prototypes of that shoe and it's god awful. It's terrible. I mean, how they refined that shoe into what it is, the blue toe and the red toe. And I think those are the first two that they released, were the blue and the red. So you had two options, and just the shiny part on the toe and the shiny part on the back and the icy bottom. It was a work of art for me and my friends. Me and my friends used to draw those shoes every day. Yeah. That's
so sick. And like the series you're talking about are the 4 seasons, right? That we're working on now. Yeah.
So the 4 seasons is, I've got a series that I've been building for the last couple years since COVID hit. It's called the CBM Famalam, and it's like my take on the Goonies, which is one of my favorite movies, which is a bunch of like kind of misfit characters that kind of join forces and go on adventures and do random wild shit. So this sneaker series, which is the 4 seasons, which I draw or illustrate my favorite shoe from each season, that kind of hints at the CBM Famalam world that I'm building. So yeah. The questions are up next in that series. Yep.
Yeah. The cool gray, reason why I thought of it, what you're working on, go check Chris's page out. He has a beautiful cool gray, like wolf, right? We all kind of associate gray with wolves and stuff.
Yeah.
There's a gorgeous illustration on that on your website. Going back to the question, you have like a bee question on there. It's like it's a red toe, but you use the hexalite to actually, have bees on there. And it looks like it's in a hive or something. It's sticking on honey.
Yeah.
Where do you get how do you figure out what to do around a picture or an illustration of a sneaker, right? Anybody can just draw a sneaker, but where do you think of, or where does inspiration come from? Like the picture, like the final piece.
Right. Well, I think that's it. I've always tried to separate from the pack. You see sneaker art every day. Everybody does sneaker art. So the last thing I wanted to be is just another guy that drew another sneaker. I guess marketing is always on the forefront of my mind. So when I do a piece, it's like, how can I now tie in this world that I'm about to release or build or, all of those things? What better way to bring in the sneakerheads and introduce them that way? What better way to bring in the hip hop heads, because I'm a big fan of hip hop and do a lot of hip hop stuff. What better way to draw, introduce the Goonbox character with the guy with the boombox on his head, and he's part of the Famalam. So what better way to bring that sector into the world that I'm building? And that's just kind of how I approach it. How can I tie in all these things that I love and put them in one pot or one space? And that's kind of like where my head is at these days. So that's where you see, the outdoorsy wood, the wooded area with the wolf gray 11s. It's like, who has ever drawn a wolf foot in an Air Jordan walking through the woods like he's on the prowl or something? That's just maybe I don't know. That's just how my mind works.
No, that's a great description of it, and that is like next level thinking. You're not. I mean, you got to make a living, right? I mean, you got to have a bigger picture. If you could just draw all day and make millions of dollars from nobody, great, that'd be powerful. Yeah. That's not how the world works out.
Well, until you tap into this NFT world. So we'll see what happens there.
Yeah. Right. No, a little different.
Yeah.
But I can see that, like, that cool gray picture getting picked up around the holiday by various people, and you being able to, monetize your beautiful work in a way that, lets you still live life. You've kind of alluded to go ahead.
Yeah. Well, I was just going to say, and that's kind of the plan. I guess I'm working backwards. That was the first piece I did. I probably should have done the fall version first and released that. I'm so hyped about that shoe coming back out because I never got a chance to own that shoe. And that was kind of, I guess that's the teaser for the series, is the Wolf Gray 11s.
It's a gorgeous shoe. I mean, beautiful I'm fortunate enough to have one. A buddy actually hooked it up for super on the homie price. So I got mine like 2 years ago.
Yeah.
I mean, so the Reebok question is your first sneaker you can kind of draw by memory. Is that like your favorite pair, or do you have like, I see a lot of stuff back there. I think I see some Sakai's back behind your head, some Air Maxes.
Yep.
What's Chris's rotation normally? Like, what kind of stuff you like to wear?
So right now, I mean, my day is just walking dogs and then doing work for the most part. So it's comfort, and that's, you see a lot of the Air Max 1s and the 90s and the Sakai's. So it's basically what looks good with a pair of sweatpants, and that's those shoes. You know, I always have, and then you have the foam posits for the winter. I just got back into the foam posits. That was one of the first shoes I fell in love with as well. I think it was like the first $200 shoe that ever came out. Maybe, I don't know. I could be wrong, but yeah, something about wearing those in the winter I love as well. But yeah, right now it's just comfort, man, and silhouette and comfort, and that's the ones, the 90s, and
foam, I mean, foam posits are comfortable. They're clunky.
They can be. Yeah, they can be.
Once you break them in and you've worn them for a bit, they are very nice. That's that upstate New York, Philly, like tank shoe. Yeah. No amount of snow can stop you wearing those.
For sure.
So we're just talking about, you know, being an artist for hire, right? Like being at your full-time career. Just checking through your webpage here. You've worked with, I mean, what brand haven't you pretty much worked with in like the sneaker realm almost at this point? Are you your own, you know, your own marketer, your own publicist? Like how do you go from I'm going to draw a beautiful illustration to work to getting that into somebody's hands to, you know, make a living doing it?
Sure.
For as little or as much you want to disclose about it, you don't have to go into
that's fine. That's a fair question. I think you know, the last couple years I kind of switched gears to where I'm trying to do just what I want to do and not rely so much on who's going to come to me. I guess I should say I let them come to me rather than me kind of go after them and do the thirsty approach. Younger me was just sending emails, mailers, you know, cold calling, which is something I hated to do. And that was a younger version of me. And it didn't always pan out because I think, you know, companies can kind of smell the desperation a little bit. And maybe that's not like a good approach for somebody that they want to bring on as like an ambassador of the brand. So usually for like right now, and the power of Instagram and social media, you can put something out and without your knowledge, it'll go viral. And then you can just sit back and let whatever come to you. And that's kind of been my approach for the last couple of years. It's like, I know if I draw, you know, an Air Jordan shoe or an Air Max shoe in my own way, that somebody's going to see it and pick up on it. And same goes with the hip hop stuff that I do. And it just so happens to be that I love to draw both of those things. You know, I've been drawing hip hop covers and sneakers since I was 10 years old. So nothing's really changed. It's just now I got to make a little money from it. So
there's a balance to it, right? Because there's times where like I'm sending out emailers to everybody too, trying to like write sneaker blog posts for people. And it's like, yeah, it's the thirstiness, but also like there's a little bit of good there because you got to have you got to show the initiative out there to be like, I want to do, I'm real about this. And on top of that, you are coming to them with something. It's not like, hey, I can draw. Maybe. Do you want to see? Maybe. Like, no, here's literally my work. Let's maybe work together. So those kind of thirsty years allow you to grow into the point where now you can put it out into the universe and people come to you.
And let me be clear. I mean, I still do send cold emails.
Oh, of course.
You have to. If you're not introducing yourself, nobody will. I guess it's harder for people to find you. So I will put myself out there. It's just I guess I'm not doing it as much as I once did. Yeah. This
conversation doesn't happen if I don't randomly DM you like, hey, Chris, I like your work. Do you want to come on the show? Yeah. So, I mean, it's a circle.
That's like, how it goes, man. And I've been a fan of your blog for a while too. You know, yours is one of the sneaker blogs that I check for you know, mostly like retro nostalgia stuff that I forgot about. And, you know, you post a lot of that stuff, which is inspiring for me because my biggest point was the 90s. Like that was my childhood. And I think that's goes without saying for a lot of us, you know.
I think we're all living for the 90s still in 2021.
Yeah.
But the 90s shit's cool now again. Like a lot of the materials and just like looks and things, like I saw Kith is dropping a Kango hat collection on Monday. It's like, damn.
My wife just came home with a bucket hat. And I'm like, what are you, TLC?
Exactly. That helps, I mean, so much because sneakers, music, I mean, you put a track on your headphones and you listen to something with a pair of shoes on, you're teleported back to when you're 14 years old.
For sure.
Does that kind of stuff, like, do you ever put a pair of shoes on? Like, all right, I'm going to illustrate something. I need some powers. I need some superpower. Like, what gets you ready?
Yep. All the time. I got I remember I mowed so many lawns in, was it 7th or 8th grade, whenever the first Air Pippins came out. Mm-hmm. And those shoes, what do they weigh? 20 pounds each. I was maybe 130 pounds in 8th grade. And I played basketball. That was my first passion. So I bought those for the season. I think with whatever the upsell laces Foot Locker always threw in with every purchase, I think they came to like 170. Mm-hmm. And that was the most money I've ever spent in my life at that point. And I remember bringing those home, and I didn't wear them for a week. I think I just smelled them and looked at them for a week. And then I tried to wear them first practice, and I couldn't even jump. I couldn't move. I don't know how he played in those things. But that's a pair that I own now that I'll bring out and just look at. And it kind of does inspire me a little bit to draw something. But I just can't wear them.
Man, so you're telling me 230 and 130 can't lift the Pippins up the same way?
I know, man. It's crazy.
That full length Air Mat and it is the Pippin one. We'll post a picture, but it's just like those are tank shoes. And the question you brought up too, that's not a light shoe in its own right.
Nope.
But there's so much flavor, like, right? I mean, I think things that you draw and things that we're passionate about, just so much flavor behind them, either with personality or clothing or shoes, whatever it might be. There's just so much cool stuff around. So like my big question I've been thinking of when looking at your stuff, like, so you can do a Kendrick Lamar illustration, right?
Sure.
Kendrick Lamar's fantastic, top 10 rapper of all time, possibly. Mm-hmm. Also has sneaker collabs. So like, do you ever think, like, what comes when you draw a Kendrick Lamar or any artist, like, do you think about what shoes they rock, or like the music first? Like, how does that start? Like, how do you get the idea for what you're going to illustrate in terms of music?
Yeah, I think when I did the Kendrick piece, obviously he's a West Coast dude. So what's a West Coast shoe? The Cortez, so, but
and that's his signature shoe too. So it all works out.
Yeah. And I've never drawn that shoe. And that's one of the shoes. I think it's a dope shoe, but I don't think I could ever wear it. I don't know. Not even just being an East Coast guy. You got to be special to pull those off, and I can't pull those off. But and then I drew Big Punisher, rest in peace, and a pair of New Balances. And I don't think I've ever seen Big Pun wear New Balances. But he was a big guy. If anybody should have been wearing New Balances, is probably Big Pun.
In old Action Bronson, when you did, he had, now he's not New Balance now. I think he's wearing New Balance again now.
Yeah, he was wearing Asics in the piece, yeah.
Mm-hmm. That's a big man shoe.
Yeah. It is a big man shoe. And I don't know. I kind of like the juxtaposition of a big guy with kind of a runner light shoe. It's funny to see Bronson wearing Sakai's. I think it's funny to see that. So, yeah, I don't always match up things that make sense, I guess is the answer.
And you don't have to. I mean, right? It's up for interpretation. It's kind of whatever. You're the artist. It's called art for a reason.
Yeah.
I'm just looking through here. I want to go in art. I'm trying to like literally get the producer. There's too many producers here to try to like get an image of. So like, let's talk about a piece like that. Like, do you just go through your memory banks? Like, all right, okay, I know I like Doom. I know I like Evidence. I know I like Apollo Brown. Like, do you just like start rattling off stuff in your own brain and just pop, or do you like is there a pre-draft? Like, what does like the process look like for you?
So those posters, I mean, those kind of pieces, my top 10, my top 20 are almost impossible to make because, that was version 2, the one that you're looking at. I did a version 1 a couple years back, and everybody was furious that I left off Just Blaze or Apollo Brown or even Doom. And, it's my 38-year-old brain. It's hard to kind of remember everything at one point. I have to, like, these days I have to tap into things that I forgot about that I used to love. I have to go back and do some research. So with that producer's piece, there's some people on there that I haven't listened to in a minute, but then as I'm drawing them, it's like now I'm listening to them. So it's a way for me to dig back up or dig through the archives a little bit and kind of refurbish that sound.
Isn't it wild? I was just thinking about that. I was thinking about a shoe and I was like, at this point, I'm maybe forgetting more stuff than like I know. This, like, especially in today's like internet, what's happening now world, we're always so focused on what's coming out 2 months from now versus maybe what we bought already 5 months ago. And it's like, oh yeah, I do have those, or like it does exist. Oh yeahs are great. Like, oh yeah, I forgot I have those.
Yep.
It's really interesting to see how the Neptunes, right? So the Neptunes are on your V2. And I can see a lot of newer kids being like, so I'm 31. Yeah. People my age being like, how the fuck do you not have the Neptunes on there? Yada, yada.
Yeah.
And just Neptunes equals Pharrell equals Adidas equals this, how it all comes full circle. It's amazing.
Yep. And with the Neptunes, it's like, I remember when they first came out, I wasn't even a big fan back then, but there's something about some artists that, regardless if you're the biggest fan, they belong in the space. So he definitely belongs on that poster, regardless if he was one of my, a person or a group I was listening to at the time. Mm-hmm. But then also I do these pieces so I can dig back through it and maybe kind of recheck it, because I've learned, as I get older, my taste grows different or is different from when I was 20, 15, whatever. So I was probably a little bit of a hater back then. So I was like, fuck those guys. I don't, they're not New York City. They're not whatever. And now my taste buds have, I don't know what the word is, but
developed.
Developed. Exactly. Sure.
That's super funny because like Neptunes, at the time, I can see how they wouldn't be for everybody, but in retrospect, and you hear what music has come out since then.
Yeah.
It's night and day once Neptunes existed and before Neptunes existed. Well,
it's like when Mace and Puff Daddy came out, everyone's like, oh, fuck the shiny suit era. But now I was like, oh, bring that era back. It's almost like, that's almost refreshing compared to some of the stuff that's out today. At least they were tapping into the 80s version of hip hop a little bit. I mean, it was still kind of corny and poppy, but, there were some jams back then too. So
it's corny and poppy now, just in triplets. So it's funny how it works. It's like, Diddy's selling out in 1997. And it's just like, well, no, he's just trying to look at Diddy now. You think he feels sold out now? He's rich.
Oh my God. I don't even know if you associate with him with music anymore. I don't even know. No. He just sits and walks around town and he's just Diddy. I don't know what he does.
That's what's so, it's funny you say that because, Jay-Z obviously is still making music, but those real powerful late 90s, let's say like the offspring of, Big and Pac, they are now uber million, if not billionaires.
Crazy.
Off of stuff we were clowning them for.
Yeah.
When they were doing it, right?
And I like to think it's like, Biggie was as raw as they come, Big Pun as well, and Big L, and you can go down the list. Who's to say they wouldn't have gone poppy if they were still around? Everybody was kind of moving in that direction anyways. Jay-Z, Nas, they all kind of tapped into that realm a little bit. And I think Biggie was before he passed as well. And that's not even to knock that sort of thing. I remember a message board when I was 12. I used to go on, it was like a hip hop message board. I'm really dating myself here. And, I remember saying, typing, fuck those guys. They're sellouts. They're commercial. And somebody's response was, well, if you're hearing whatever you listen to, then technically that's commercial as well. And that kind of stuck with me. It's like, you wouldn't know who you listen to if they weren't, in some aspect commercial. So yeah, it's just, I guess it depends how you look at that sort of thing.
Pac had to start doing movies so Snoop could work with Martha Stewart.
Yeah, right. Exactly.
Pac had to walk so Snoop could run.
Right.
And I mean, those people too, I mean, like, what's more, I mean, if you know anything about Snoop, Adidas and Snoop Dogg go together like, peas and carrots. It's just like, you build a brand and you market yourself right. Like, the sky's the limit. What's beautiful about what you do and what we do, you get to kind of avoid specific affiliations. I think obviously I wear a lot of Nike, there's a lot of Nikes back behind you. So you wear whatever you want to, but nobody ever has the right to tell you, hey, don't draw that question.
Yeah.
And that's powerful. So it's like, sell out a little bit, but you're still ultimately doing your own thing. Like,
And that's part of the thing too. It's like, I love New Balance 998s. I don't think there's a better, more comfortable shoe than that shoe, for me at least. I have a very thin foot, and Nikes don't always work well with my thin foot. So, and I think that's such a great fall sneakers, the 998 or the 997. So, and that's actually one of the sneakers I'm drawing in the Four Seasons series. And also with the marketing aspect, that's also how I say, hey, New Balance, I like what you're doing. I try to do a little bit of everything. But yeah, I kind of spread it around if I can.
It's super funny how you'll say I have a thin foot, but like taste buds evolving, right? When you were younger, I have a flat foot. I'd wear stuff purposely that was not comfortable because it was heat or just because I felt cool wearing it. Now it's like, I got to actually like move in these.
Yeah.
So
I know, because plantar fasciitis is real, man.
It is very real.
Yep.
I mean, 998s, Air Maxes. I mean, that kind of stuff is going to keep your feet right. I mean, you said you're married. Like, do you ever what are you going to pull on date night? It was like, hey, let's go put something on pre-COVID or maybe 2 years from now. Yeah. What's a banger? You're just like, I'm going to pull these out really quick.
I think it depends on the weather. If it's cold, if it's raining,
it's a nice day.
On a nice day, a nice night. I have a pair of the Wheat Jordan 4s, which is like a dress shoe, and that is it's a beautiful shoe. It's a very uncomfortable shoe to get on and get off. I call them my heels. For day night. Daddy's got to put his heels on, and that's one of the shoes. And usually it's like a Jordan 1 because that's kind of like a dress shoe in its own way.
It is.
Jordan 1s or Air Force 1s, Air Force 1 lows.
Those 4s you're talking about, they have like the actual leather laces on them, right?
Yeah. Or they came with a pair that's just normal, but it's still wheat colored. And that's what
those are so hard to move. I know I held them. They're heavy. That's like the heaviest Jordan 4 ever made.
Yep.
But man, it's a good look. We just did a whole episode of premiums.
Yep.
Oh God, I love that shoe. So I mean, that kind of covers a lot. So we got some sneaker news. We got some art news. I just want to do the last plug of make sure you go check out Chris's website. It says chrisbmurray.com with an AY. And there's a store there. You can go cop some stuff. You just dropped some merch, right? Or you're about to drop some merch?
I'm pre-ordering. I did a kind of a Wu Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles kind of mashup that was a kind of like a hot item a couple years ago. And I'm just starting to tap into the merch side of things. This is a producer shirt that I just put out. And we're approaching winter, cold season. So I'm doing crew necks and hoodies. And just kind of feeling out that market a little bit. I got a crew neck that's I'm taking pre-orders right now, and more on the way pretty soon. Yeah,
that's a smart move, man. Because I mean, you brought up comic book, shoes, and music in the beginning, but like people between our ages, you put Ninja Turtles and Wu-Tang on something.
I know.
It's a sell.
I'm almost hoping it doesn't get too widespread to where I'm on their radar now, and they ask, I get that cease and desist letter, which I've gotten recently. And my response to that is I never want to do anything to tarnish, the people that I'm drawing anything that I'm making, that's just from my own stance. It's an homage to everything that I love, everything that I grew up loving. Wu-Tang 36 Chambers was one of the first albums I've ever heard, and I can remember what I was eating when I heard that album. I remember where I was sitting. So if anything, that's just like, hey, you know, you guys, you know, you hold the throne as far as I'm concerned with hip hop. And then Ninja Turtles, of course, it was X-Men and Ninja Turtles when I was a kid. You can't, you know, there was nothing else. So those two together, you know, ice cream and pie, it's a perfect marriage.
It truly is. I mean, I'm just thinking about, I have a picture somebody drew of like a Air Jordan 1 on the other side of the screen right now. And it's just like artistic representation, man. Get off my ass.
Yeah, exactly. Leave me alone.
It is. I mean, that's a whole nother topic someday. But Chris, I really appreciate you coming on the show.
Sure.
What's your social handle? Where can they find you on the internets?
Pretty much everything's Chris B. Murray, at Chris B. Murray, Instagram, Twitter, Facebook is CBM Artworks. And yeah, that's pretty much it. I have a link to my store and my website on my Instagram. So that's pretty much that's where I hang out. So find me there. Yeah.
It's magical when you don't have to fight for a handle. It's just like, my name is the handle.
Yeah.
Whew. Yeah, that was easy. Well, listeners, we appreciate you tuning in. Thank you so much for listening through another episode of the Sneaker History Podcast. Make sure you like and subscribe if you're watching this on YouTube. And if not, make sure you drop a review on like Apple Music or whatever Spotify you're using. We really appreciate it. Peace, everybody. Have a good day.
Thanks.